Board of Town Commissioners for February the 3rd is now in session. I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Rutledge.
Here.
Commissioner Chismar.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
And Commissioner Chance. Here. All right, if everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make the motion that the agenda for this evening's meeting, February the 3rd, 2025, be approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Any discussion of the agenda?
Excuse me, can you turn the volume up? We can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now? All right, we'll work on that. Let me know if I fade out again. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this evening's agenda? All right, in that case, I'm going to call the vote. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Next up is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to make the motion for the minutes to be approved from last month's meeting. I'm sorry. I don't have the date in front of me, but, I'm sorry, February 3rd. Sorry about that. Today's the 3rd.
No, so here.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I should put my glasses on.
Once you get your glasses
There we
on.
go, there we go.
There you go.
I'd like to make the motion that the minutes from the Board of Commissioners meeting held on January 14th, 2025, January 15th, 2025, and January 16th, 2025, as well as January the 21st, 2025, be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Any amendments to the minutes? All right, in that case, I will call the vote. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye, except I abstain from the January 16th, 2025 employee budget listening session because I was not there.
thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye, and I'm going to vote for all of them because if those of us who weren't present for those meetings don't vote, they won't pass.
Correct.
So I trust you that those are faithful recordings, so I'll vote aye on all.
thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. All right, now we get to the most important part maybe of our evening, the recognition of two officers, and I will join the chief at the podium. Absolutely. We have so many employees and so many volunteers who make the town what it is, a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to visit. And this evening we are going to recognize two of them. First, we are going to award a certificate of appreciation from the Bel Air Police Department to Donald Scott Hogue. The Bel Air Police Department is proud to recognize Donald Scott Hogue as a valued member of our police auxiliary unit. Scott has served with the police department since 2017, dedicating countless hours to support the department at numerous events. His unwavering commitment and willingness to step in whenever needed has made a significant impact. Over the past 8 years, Scott's contributions and sacrifices have saved the department substantial overtime costs. We're truly grateful for his dedication and his service. So I'm going to present you with that, and thank you so much for everything you've done for the town, and this goes along with it.
I would be remiss if I did not have anything to say for Corporal Scott Hogue here. For those of you that aren't familiar, we have a Bel Air Police Auxiliary Unit. You probably see many of them. They're dressed just like this, dressed pretty much just like a Bel Air officer. We have 8 officers on our auxiliary unit, and they are tasked with many of the duties that police officers do. They have the same training in many respects, but there's one big exception. They don't have guns. So many times they're out there, they're doing the same stuff that we do, and they don't have the safety and security of having that little partner on the side there. And they're very essential. They've become very essential for the town of Bel Air. They work many events. They work the 4th of July parade. They work the Christmas parade. They work the Arts Fest. And they even go out on patrol. So one of the benefits that you can get from being a volunteer reserve officer, and the fire department has the same kind of benefit, is that if you work 150 hours in a year, you qualify for a tax credit under House Bill 646. Well, 150 hours, that's 19 days. That Scott, he's very dedicated to his regular day job down on the Aberdeen Proving Ground, and that's time he's not away, that he's away from his family, and that he's giving us at the town of Bel Air. We're very fortunate to have the reserve, the auxiliary unit, and they save us thousands and thousands of dollars. And this guy here, he's one of the guys out in front of the auxiliary. I can always count on him. So a little bit of his history. Scott has been an auxiliary officer since 2017, having joined the unit out of a desire to continue to serve. He comes from a proud tradition of military service, his family stems back to the French and Indian War, which is amazing. His family has also served in the American Revolution, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and the Cold War years. Scott himself is a Marine, Devil Dog, right? Can I say that? I'm not one of you, but all right. Scott served in the War on Terror as a machine gunner from 2005 to 2009. He earned a Purple Heart for wounds received during a combat deployment in Ramadi, Iraq in 2006. He went on to serve in the Army National Guard from 2009 to 2013, earning Commandant's List recognition upon graduation from the Warriors Leader course. Scott earned Scott earned Bel Air's Critical Incident Service Award in 2020, volunteering for several days during the demonstrations. And in fact, when we had the demonstrations or protests, when things were kicking up and they were getting a little heated, I looked at Scott and I said, "Scott, that's your place in line." And he's like, "Yes, sir." And he stood there and didn't move, did what you were supposed to do. And I truly commend you for doing that. He's been an active member of the auxiliary service, saving the Bel Air Police Department money over many years. He has a Bachelor of Science in Management and a Master of Science in Homeland Security Management. He's married to Heather. Where's Heather? There's Heather. And has 2 boys, Chase and Weston. And I know you have chickens at home too. I've heard of that before too. For whom he hopes to set, and there's no doubt about it, you absolutely set a great example for your kids. And I'm proud of you and thank you for serving us and the citizens of the town of Bel Air. You want to bring her up for pictures? Heather? Come on up. Junk here. Yep.
Next, we're going to award a certificate of appreciation to Nicholas T. Rhodes. The Bel Air Police Department is proud to recognize Officer First Class Nicholas T. Rhodes for his promotion to Staff Sergeant on January 1st, 2025 in the United States Marine Corps. Officer First Class Rhodes has been a member of the Marine Corps since 2014 and has earned many awards and commendations during his honorable service. Officer First Class Rhodes has successfully re-enlisted for 4 more years on December 5th, 2024. We congratulate Officer First Class Rhodes on his promotion to Staff Sergeant with the United States Marine Corps. His work ethic, his dedication, and his sacrifices in both organizations exemplify the spirit of Semper Fi, the beloved slogan and motto of the United States Marine Corps. So, our second Marine of the evening.
Again, I have to have a couple great words for this young man. He pretty much started about the same time I did as a cadet, and always had a lot of interest in the military stuff. And as you see, he is excelling, both with the Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps, and the Bel Air Police Department. So I have a couple things to say, and excuse me, I've got a little tickle in my throat. I might have to stop a couple times. Staff Sergeant Nicholas T. Rhodes enlisted into the United States Marine Corps on December 12th, 2014, and was assigned to MCRD. Now, I don't know what that is. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. That's your academy, right? Paris Island. I guess it makes sense. From February 9th, 2015 through May 12th, 2015. He graduated as honor graduate of Platoon 2034, 2nd Battalion Echo Company, and was meritoriously promoted to Private First Class. Lance Corporal Rhodes was assigned to 4th Combat Engineer Battalion on September 26, 2015. He was promoted to Corporal on October 1st, 2018, which I remember, and served as a fire team leader and assistant squad leader. Corporal Rhodes was selected to attend the 2019 Marine Corps Combat Marksmanship Competition held at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. Excuse me. Corporal Rhodes was promoted to Sergeant on April 1st, 2020, and served as Heavy Equipment Platoon's Licensing NCO, that's Non-Commissioned Officer, and Second Squad Leader. Sergeant Rhodes was also awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal during this time. Sergeant Rhodes also shot a perfect score on the USMC pistol qualification and a near-perfect score on the annual rifle qualification, most recently during a 2023 range that he instructed and then also shot at as part of his score. Sergeant Rhodes was requested by the United States Marine Corps Reserve Shooting Team to become an assistant instructor for the shooting team, where he assisted and certified over 100 Marines shooting the combat marksmanship coaches aboard Marine Corps Base Quantico in 2022. Sergeant Rhodes was named as the Assistant Platoon Sergeant of Heavy Equipment Platoon in 2022 and served that role until November of 2024. He successfully re-enlisted for an additional 4 more years on December 5th, 2024. He was promoted to Staff Sergeant effective January 1st, 2025, and is currently the Staff Non-Commissioned Officer in charge of training and operations and assigned to company headquarters staff. Staff Sergeant Rhodes' current awards are the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal ×2, Selected Marine Corps Reserve Medal ×2, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, National Defense Service Medal. Staff Sergeant Rhodes has also been awarded 3 certificates of commendation and 2 certificates of appreciation and 1 letter of appreciation. This same type of behavior and performance he brings to the Bel Air Police Department, and we're incredibly fortunate to have both of these devil dogs here at the Bel Air Police Department. And as you might be well aware, we all shoot very well, thanks to guys like this and Scott Hogue. So congratulations, Staff Sergeant, right? Glad to have you. Taryn, you come up. And Mom. You know what, I forgot to mention him in the audience. Come on up. Got his family here. And his wife is also a Bel Air police officer, Taryn Rhodes O'Grady.
All right, we're gonna have to work on when that cake is served, actually. We never get to do that part. We never get to do that part.
You know, Madam Chair, if I could just ask brief leave of the chair, I am just always stunned by the incredible caliber of public servant that we find in Bel Air. The town truly does have a culture of public service, and I can think of no two finer examples of that than the two gentlemen that we just recognized. It really is an outstanding, outstanding example set by our town.
I couldn't say it better. It is, really. All right, continuing with our agenda, under new business, we have ordinance 839-25, an ordinance amending Article 7 and 14 and permitted use tables of the development regulations as related to mixed-use centers in Chapter 165 of the Bel Air Town Code. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that ordinance number 839-25, revised Town Code, Chapter 165, Article 7, Performance Standards, Article 14, Definitions, and Attachment 1, Permitted Use Tables related to mixed-use centers, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. And I believe this is Mr. Small?
Yes.
Thank you.
The regulation of specific uses is provided through the Town of Bel Air Development Regulations text found in Chapter 165, Part 2 of the Code. Requirements related to mixed-use centers are found in Article 7, Section 165-53I-2G, entitled Development and Performance Standards, also in Section 165-104, Definitions, and Section 165, Attachment 1, which is the Permitted Use Tables. Recently, two developments have obtained approval under the designation of mixed-use center. A question of what limits would be appropriate for the land use allocation within a mixed-use center have been reviewed. In addition, what limitation would the mix of uses provide for the density of residential? And the relationship to the land use designation in the comprehensive plan or zoning district also becomes a legitimate challenge to any new mixed-use development. By applying a minimum percentage between residential and commercial uses based upon the underlying land use designation that's found in the comp plan, any mixed-use proposal must adhere to the intent of the comprehensive plan by providing a majority of the designated use. So if the comprehensive plan is designating that particular property as commercial, the majority must be commercial. Changes to the definition would address this issue. In addition, hard numbers tend to paint both the developer and the town into a corner by not allowing for variation of design and correction for prevailing market trends. Changes to the performance standards would allow for an applicant to adjust the use and limitation by elaborating on the details of the project and proving to the Planning Commission that the project has exceeded the minimum standards and is in conformance with the intent of the comprehensive plan. Minor adjustments have also been made to the permitted use charts to reduce confusion. Staff recommends ordinance number 839-25, amending sections 165-53I-2G, performance standards, section 165-104, definitions, and attachment 1, permitted use tables, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Director Small. I know there was a lot of discussion of this at the last work session, which through the magic of YouTube I was able to view, which I thought was very helpful to me, so I'm glad that we're doing that. Any discussion this evening before we take public comment? Okay. Yeah. All right, so at this time, we'll take public comment on ordinance 839-25 only, if there's anyone here that wishes to speak on that piece of legislation. All right. No one here for that piece of legislation. So this is a vote just to accept it. It would be subject to receive it. It will be voted on later as to pass it, and it could be amended, changed,
Correct.
in any form between now and then.
Public hearing is likely to be scheduled on March 3rd.
March 3rd, okay. All right, in that case, any further discussion amongst the board before we vote? All right, I will call the vote, since Mr. Krantz is doing multiple duties this evening. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So ordinance 839-25 is received. All right. Our next piece of business is ordinance 840-25, an ordinance amending Article 3, 10, and lot requirements tables of the development regulations as related to density limits in Chapter 165 of the Bel Air Town Code. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that ordinance number 840-25, revised Town Code, Article 165, Article 3, zoning districts, Article 10, accessory units, and the table of lot requirements related to density be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. And this is again, Mr. Small.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The B2A Central Business Gateway District and the B3A General Business Gateway District were revised in 2010 as form-based code. Form-based code refers to a type of land use regulation that focuses on controlling the physical appearance and design of buildings, including their relationship to the public realm like streets and sidewalks, rather than solely separating different land uses such as residential, commercial, industrial, similar to traditional zoning. It prioritizes how a development looks and functions within the community's desired urban form, and rather than just what uses are allowed on the property. Density limits are not found in the zoning criteria in order to prioritize critical architectural and engineering design standards. However, the town board has expressed a desire to reinstate density limits in the B2A and B3A zones. The proposed ordinance will apply density limitations that are similar to those found in the B3 district. Many of the regulations for setbacks and building height in the lot requirements tables refer back to the respective zoning district code section established in 2010 to address more detailed form-based constraints found there. In addition, displaced requirements for accessory structures are added to Article 10 as applying to all districts. Basically what we did was we moved that section establishing setbacks for accessory uses and put those in the interior of the code. The staff recommends ordinance 840-25, amending section 165-31 and 165-33, zoning districts, section 165-68, accessory uses, and 165 attachment 2, table of lot requirements, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Small. I know there was a great amount of discussion of this as well at the work session. Any further discussion at this time before we take public comment?
One clarifying question, and Mr. Krantz is here now too. This will also be likely scheduled for a March 3rd public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Krantz establishes that, but I think that's what I
March 3rd.
heard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, March 3rd, it'll be published tomorrow.
And that would be for both ordinance 839 and 840?
Correct.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we'll take public comment on ordinance 840-25 only. And just to remind everyone of the ground rules, we need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, unless you're representing an entity, in which case you have 5.
Great, I'll take the latter.
Thank you for that. We do not. Mr. Krantz is busy, so I will return to our old school method of running the clock myself. It's a
Okay.
little difficult because you won't see the clock, but Mr. Krantz
It's not
usually
going
does
to take
it.
5, but it's going to take more than 3. Matt Garono, 26 to 32 North Hickory Avenue, more commonly known as Hickory Flats. I'm here tonight to speak in opposition to this bill, not about what it says, but about what it doesn't say. And I hope to appeal to your sense of fairness under the law and your moral convictions about what's right and wrong. The new version of the bill before us tonight no longer contains an exemption for projects that have received all of their approvals from the town, like Hickory Flats. The original version of the bill contained this exemption and was sent to the Planning Commission for comment. So I'd like to read an excerpt from the Planning Commission's official response to the original bill dated January 2nd, 2025. Quote, "The addition of density limits to the B2A and B3A zoning districts proposed by the town board was not opposed by the Planning Commission, since it does not appear most of the properties in these zones would be adversely affected, assuming the ordinance exemptions remain as currently written. At the most recent work session, many commissioners referenced the importance of the Planning Commission and relying on their judgment for these matters. The removal of the exemption is in direct opposition to the recommendation of the Planning Commission. This fact was not mentioned or discussed by the commissioners at the 114 work session, 121 board meeting, 128 work session, nor has it been brought up tonight except in this very moment. It was just removed and no one brought it up. How can this be? It needs to be discussed. Changing the zoning rules without an exemption for fully approved projects is about more than just killing Hickory Flats. It's about the precedent you set and the message you are sending to the business and banking communities. Are people going to come to Bel Air to pursue projects if they know their approvals are not worth the paper they're written on? Moreover, Hartford Bank has made a loan on this property based on the approvals from the town. Is our hometown bank going to lend in the town of Bel Air when they know the approvals are not worth the paper they're written on? This decision is going to echo far beyond Hickory Flats and stands to tarnish the reputation of this town in those communities. My partner Brad and I have our livelihoods tied up in this project based on lawful approvals we have received from the town. We are not big developers. We're two local entrepreneurial guys who have executed on an opportunity. We have respectfully gone about our work in compliance with the law, followed every rule and regulation, and have spent millions of dollars to obtain preliminary site plan approval from the Planning Commission in 2022 and a lawful one-year extension in December of 2024. The Hickory Flats site was specifically identified as an ideal site for a significant high-end multifamily development in the 2016 market study that greatly influenced the crafting of the comprehensive plan. This project brings innumerable social and economic benefits to the town in congruence with the comprehensive plan and helps to accomplish the goal of making Bel Air a center for the next generation of the workforce to live. Please discuss this thoroughly and vote to add back the language exempting projects with preliminary site plan approval, not only because the Planning Commission recommends it, but because it is objectively the right thing to do. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wish to address this particular piece of legislation?
Paul Thompson, Architectural Design Works, 22 West Allegheny Avenue, Towson, Maryland. I'd like to just explain kind of how the code came to life. I spent 26 years on the ECDC, chairing it most of the time, and we carefully worked with the planning department, Carol Dybel and Chris Schler, in crafting a balance between tax base and architecture, if you will. And that's one of the reasons we went to the form-based kind of zoning. We wanted to make sure the focus was on great architecture and not necessarily wordsmithing what developers could do or not do. Like Kevin had mentioned, we wanted to give them some flexibility to meet market demands. So with that, I recognize, I was here at the work session, and recognize that we don't want ugly townhomes in single-family communities. I don't want that either. But make it great. I mean, those townhomes on Broadway could be beautiful, but we didn't require the developer to make them beautiful, right? And a lot of that has to do with massing and scale and detail. It doesn't have to do with the number of units per se, right? There are millions of great projects in cities all over the world, right? And I think hamstrunging the density in those two zones that are meant to be step-down zones from our central core to those single-family and maybe multifamily zones, it creates challenges for the design professional. I mean, I've been practicing for 30 years in the town of Bel Air, and it seems like it just continues to get more challenging. Land costs have gone up, construction costs have gone up, rental rates have not gone up that much. They've gone up some. But developers are hamstrung by interest rates and those other challenges, supply chain issues, in an effort to get these projects to pen. I mean, I think we also need to think about tax base and what we want our town to look like 20, 30 years from now. And this will have a tremendous impact if we do look at capping those rates. You know, some projects are going to kind of work themselves out. For instance, the Academy was set up at 29 apartments. It never worked from a pro forma standpoint. When we went back in there, created a different plan of approach, right? It was wildly successful right out of the gate. So sometimes you've got to kind of let the market speak for itself and work its way through the process. And I think that's can also be said for the mall. Look no further than Hunt Valley, right? Everybody back in the 80s said that was a dog, and they'd never be able to redevelop that project. Greenberg Gibbons, who's a very smart, sophisticated developer, found a way to turn that around. And they did it through integrating residential, assisted living, and the retail components that they've created there in more of a town center standpoint. That project wouldn't have made it through COVID if they hadn't dropped 400 apartments on the backside of that Hunt Valley Town Center. And then now they've added 2 more assisted living, so the kids are going there to see mom and dad. They're going out to dinner with their family. I mean, it synergizes. And the Hartford Mall developer isn't overly sophisticated, but I think as the town, we need to get to the table with them and show them this is what we envision, right? And we understand some of the component needs to be high-density multifamily. Again, I don't think it's the density that's the issue. I think it's the way in which it's crafted. So with that, I'd say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else that wishes to make public comment this evening?
I'm Michael Adams, my wife Debbie. We live at 1401 Gunston Road, Bel Air, and we were the previous owners of 26 North Hickory Avenue, across the street. I worked for Mr. Hall, who built the house originally, and in 1983, Debbie and I started buying the house from the Halls with the stipulation that they could live there the rest of their lives, and which they did until they had to go, Mr. Hall had to go into a nursing home. I then took over his business later on and had my tax accounting business there. You know, we've thought about it over the years, maybe even, Debbie and I even talked about moving back to Bel Air and making that our home, you know. But then, you know, it didn't seem right, and so we decided, and then the opportunity came to sell the house to Brad, and with Craig Ward selling his property and John Reed selling his property, and we went along with it, and we sold the house. And I thought the way you said it, that's what I want to get across. I'm born and raised in this town. Most of you people know me and my wife Debbie. I've always been taught to play fair, and I don't think you're playing fair with Mr. Shapiro. I watched him for the last 7 years when he started, and 5 years ago when he started purchasing it, you know, and every hoop he had to go through, all the expense he had to pay, he went and did it. And I would be remiss not to come up and say, I don't think you're you know, being fair with Mr. Shapiro and Hickory Flat Project. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I agree with Mike in that we kind of held out selling this property because we had thought about our future and all, but things change. And this young man came in and really impressed us with his plan and his real goal. You know, I just feel like a lot more went into this than people realize, that he really did a lot to see what is good for the town and you know, and that's what made our decision to sell, because we really didn't originally intend to sell. And it is disappointing, all the work and the effort and you know, what he's put into this project for this to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else that wants to comment this evening?
morning. My name is Bill Kelly. I live at 582 Ridgewood Road here in Bel Air, 21014. I've listened to the articulation by this gentleman, and Paul, where's Paul? Did he leave? There he is back there. They make a lot of good sense. They're from this town. They're from this neighborhood. They're entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs. Every one of you live in this town. It can't not grow. It's just, when you look at the projection, if you do a projection off of no growth, that's just it. There's no growth and there's no opportunity. So my nephew and I purchased 48 and 54 East Gordon Street. And I remember that was in 2008 or 9. And Chris Slayer, it was during the horrible financial crisis that we had back then. Chris Slayer came to see me, and he wanted me, and he wanted Brian and I, my nephew and my partner, to buy the 54 East Gordon. And it was falling down. Literally, the windows were falling out of it. Historical property, meant a lot to a lot of people in town, and we ended up buying it, and we invested in it. We developed it. That is not a bad word, developer. It's not a bad word. We need it in this town. And we need young entrepreneurs just like that. I'm over the hill, so to speak. Not quite, not quite, not quite. Still got a lot of kick left. So I know my time is running out. And I read all the material that Kevin and his group prepared. I'm on the ECDC. Of course we're for development, but we're for good development. And it's a good word, development. It means a lot to this town for good, solid development to take place that we can all be proud of. We're very proud of 48 and 54 East Gordon Street. We got awards galore from the Maryland Historic Commission because of our work done there. That building would have fallen down, literally fallen down. We were advised not to do it by structural engineer. We did it anyway. The same way with 48 East Gordon. It was almost as bad a shape as 54. I know I'm running out of time. So
20
I
seconds.
just want you guys to sit back and take a second look, and a second look, I guess, is fine, about this project. And I don't even know these guys, and I'm up here talking for them. I don't know them. I've met them here and there, just shake hands. I don't know them. I have no interest in it at all. But
And
I
that-
have an interest in Bel Air. I know.
That will be time.
Oh, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. So I think you got my point.
Got it.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Anyone else wish to address this piece of legislation?
I'll make an attempt and try to follow that up. I don't know if I can, but we'll make an attempt. J. Allenby. My address is 1419 East McPhail Road, Bel Air, 21015. To Bill's point and many of the other speakers, I also have served on ECDC for the past 14 years. I think 14 years. And you think about all the things that have taken place over the years. One of the bright stars is the Armory. Economic development. It's about economic development. And that's what this project is, and many of the other projects. I look at these guys and many out here, you have entrepreneurs who are willing to put everything they have. I teach a course on entrepreneurship, and this is what it is. Guys who are willing to put in their resources, their time, their family's time, and the project that makes something look really good and great for the community. So all I can say is please take a look at the investment that these gentlemen are putting into the community, and because you know it's going to be multiple coming back to the community itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allenby. Anyone else that would care to address this piece of legislation? All right, it appears that we are at the end of public comment for ordinance 840-25. Any discussion amongst the board at this point?
I think we've heard a lot to consider. I can say that both of these ordinances, having been heavily discussed and heavily amended, I feel are ready for introduction, but that does not mean that they cannot be further amended, further discussed. There will be a public hearing scheduled for March 3rd, so I think we've done a lot of work to get them here. There's more work to get them into a place where they'll be ready for final passage, but I appreciate everyone who came out tonight to express their opinion, because we take it very seriously, and I value that opinion very much.
I would like to say that I certainly appreciate all the comment that was made tonight, but as a commissioner who's been looking at these and the changes that have been made, I think we have still work to do before we finalize this. And we have a responsibility to do what's right and not what, well, I don't like this or I don't like that. I want us to do the hard work and not just say, okay, in a couple weeks we'll vote and it'll be done. I want us to really look this over yet again. I'm not ready to vote on this at all.
Any other commissioners care to comment?
Yeah, I would. I feel that we've worked very, very hard on the numbers here, from the initial bill that was introduced. This bill that just is directed towards these two particular zones is dramatically stripped down to the restrictions that were introduced in the first bill, and that we've worked hard to discuss and deliberate upon that. In fact, we received an analysis from Director Small of other projects in town to see, what projects were built with elevators, as that was a big concern for me. And they came in with less density than what we're proposing, that we had looked at other communities, and our restrictions would be the most liberal of every town in Harford County. And there you go. Might be your burger.
I just took it out of my pocket, that's all I did.
So I feel that the hard work has been done with regard to aligning a density thing. It does not do away with the architectural review powers of the form-based zoning whatsoever. It just puts a ceiling on the density per acre, which I'm convinced, and of all the data that I've seen and provided to by the Department of Planning, that it is a very liberal density policy. I think from what I've heard this evening, and certainly what I've thought a lot about, is just the basic question, not of the bill itself. I haven't heard any serious articulation against the density limit that was arrived at. I haven't heard any objection whatsoever about making density age neutral, which I asked for, pushed for, argued for, and is in this bill. And I think that the question that needs to be dealt with between now and adopting the bill and through public hearing is whether or not when to make the effective date of the bill, or whether or not to provide for there to be an exemption in the bill for projects that have already received approval. That I think clearly can be debated and discussed for amendment during the public hearing as well as the next round. So I think it's time to move the legislation forward, but I'm not at all committing to which way I would vote on an amendment to carve out any existing project. I think prospectively moving forward, I think that not necessarily 100% consensus, but the overall wisdom to have conformity between these two districts and the B3, across the board, I think is a good thing. And so I'm in favor of moving that forward, but by doing that, I'm clearly going to reserve my powder on whether or not I would make or support an amendment to have a carve out for projects that have been approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge.
Yeah, I'd like to echo some of what the other commissioners have said. I mean, the density limit is, I mean, that's the most permissive we have in town. And, you know, B3 and B3A, B2A, it's kind of like your step-down zones, but we're not really stepping down the density. So it's pretty much saying it's flat. And I think that's a good compromise because we don't want to stifle development. I'm not for that. We want to develop, and I think Mr. Kelly, what he said about 48 and 54 East Gordon, I love that kind of stuff, that kind of development. I like that, renovating what we have and reusing it. But development has to me, I think this is a good bill. It's a good compromise that keeps the scale of the projects in line with what our town looks like now. I mean, we're not trying to transform the entire town. I don't that's not what my agenda is. I'd like to see us just, we need to develop, we need to grow a little, but I don't think, you know, that this keeps us in the 20 density, 20 units per acre keeps us in a reasonable building rate, in my opinion. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. I think we are ready for a vote to receive or accept this bill. And I'm going to ask Mr. Krantz to be sure to add this to our next work session for further discussion, since there are some things that we're still wrestling with amongst ourselves. So at this time, I am going to call for the vote. Commissioner Rutledge?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Abstain.
And the chair votes aye. All right. The ordinance is received. And we will look to Mr. Krantz to publish the public hearing date, which is going to be March 3rd for those of you who are interested in coming back. Next, we have Resolution 1245-25, a resolution renewing the allowance for temporary outdoor dining while discontinuing the exemption allowing temporary structures such as tents in the town of Bel Air. And may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that resolution number 1245-25, renewing the allowance for temporary outdoor dining while discontinuing the exemption allowing temporary structures such as tents in the town of Bel Air, be received by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. And this would be Mr. Krantz, who is back in his seat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our camera operator normally would be panning and tilting and zooming, but I'm happy to help.
We appreciate you,
in
that you're
their-
wearing two
in
hats
their
this evening,
absence.
Mr. Krantz, and you're doing a
Okay.
great job.
All right, thank you. So this is a little bit of background on this resolution, Resolution 1245-25. In a nutshell, the COVID pandemic has ended. The code moratoriums that were passed to help during the pandemic related to outdoor dining, temporary structures such as tents, and outdoor entertainment that were extended by Resolution 1221-24 are set to expire on March 31st, 2025. The issues at the heart of this resolution is outdoor seating at restaurants, bars, breweries, and nightclubs remains a valuable and popular option for patrons and businesses in the town of Bel Air, and the town recognizes the importance of maintaining outdoor dining opportunities to support local businesses and promote community engagement while balancing the need to address other concerns related to temporary structures such as tents. So just to get to the final meat and potatoes, so to speak, of this resolution, is that staff recommends that the provisions of the town code pertaining to temporary use permits should remain suspended to allow for continued outdoor dining operations, specifically such as tables, chairs, and umbrellas, until September 30th, 2025. However, other provisions of the town code pertaining to temporary structures such as tents should be enforced
and must comply with all applicable code regulations after the expiration of Resolution 1221-24 on March 31st, 2025, as well as code regulations pertaining to establishments that wish to have an outdoor event that may or may not include entertainment, live bands, musicians, or music amplified or otherwise on a portion of their property that is not designated for the desired use. These portions of the code should be enforced and must comply with all applicable code regulations as well after the expiration of Resolution 1221-24 on March 31st. So staff recommends that the receipt of Resolution 1245-25 occur this evening, and because there might be people that would like to provide feedback, our staff is recommending a public hearing to be scheduled for February 18th at 7 p.m. on this particular item.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz.
So, Madam Chair, as the sort of originator of this piece of legislation, Mr. Krantz has done an excellent job explaining what it does. So I just wanted to provide a little bit on how we got here. And so I took a look at the businesses in town that were still making use of this, and my goal was to see where we had latitude and where we had to hold firm. And after having conversations with Director Klein regarding some building safety issues with Mr. Small, with Mr. Krantz, we came upon this compromise that allows those businesses that are still accessing the benefits of the temporary use outdoor dining permit to continue to make use of that for 6 months following the expiration of the resolution that we passed last year, while providing that all other exemptions snap back to normal because, as Mr. Krantz aptly stated, the COVID emergency is, of course, over. However, the emergency being over, I wanted to provide what I'm calling a soft landing period, whereby businesses who are using this to create value, using this, their business may or may not depend on it, having that space for outdoor dining, that is not taken away so quickly. They have a final 6 months to navigate towards a permanent solution. So that was the genesis of bringing this resolution to the board. I'd ask my colleagues to receive it, and I look forward to any public comment that we might have tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any other commissioners wish to be heard?
I really appreciate your work on this. I feel that we have to realize that you can't, or you could, demand that the tents come down now. But I think looking at another few more months, especially through the summer, would be helpful. And I support it.
So I'm confused. I thought tents were not, tents go back to the regular status. Is that correct in this bill?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
It's only that you can have more outdoor dining beyond the 75%.
That's right.
And not have to provide adequate parking.
Mr. Small can provide
Is that correct?
the specifics, but the way that I would phrase it is that the way that the temporary use for outdoor dining is treated now, that would be extended for another 6 months.
Correct.
Right. And it would be for all establishments, not just those that are currently using it today.
To my understanding, that's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you've got basically 3 that are using outdoor dining areas that have not been fully permitted,
Okay.
only through a temporary permit.
Yeah, certainly the goal is not to single anybody out, rather understanding that this specific piece of the COVID moratorium may have a greater impact on a business's revenue than, say, the ability to put up a tent. The ability to use space for outdoor dining is going to have a greater impact on that business's ability to function. And so that was the intention of drawing out that specific provision for a final 6-month extension.
Okay.
I only know of 2 businesses. One is Zeevolt, one is IBC. What's the third?
The tower rooftop deck
Tower Rooftop.
was never, a final plan was never done, and so they're
Oh.
considered in violation.
Okay, I was just curious. The biggest concern I have about this is that we've we're well past COVID. I mean, we gave extension after extension after extension, and I understand that the business has some problems that they can't solve themselves. They need some cooperation by their neighbors. But I would like to have them come and address the board and let us know what their plan is, so that we're not just kicking this can down the road for another 6 months and then we're like back in the same position.
Well, I can say from my
Right.
perspective, for me, this final 6 months on this specific outdoor dining provision is the final 6 months. So that's where I am, because last time we passed this legislation, I understand that some of us said that it was the final. In speaking with staff, there was some confusion on that. And when we made the decision as a board not to extend that particular piece of legislation, there was some confusion and some concern about the impact that this would have specifically. So my goal was to narrow down the resolution as much as possible, to allow as much as possible to go back to normal, while still providing, again, that soft landing period. So that's where this came from. But I agree with you. I have no intention to extend it or kick the can down the road absolutely any longer than the end of this summer, which I viewed as an appropriate time for this outdoor dining provision to continue. So that's where I'm coming from.
Are you sure?
I am sure. And I'm really sure.
You know, when you tell your kids, this is the last time, I really mean it this time, I would like to hear a plan before I, not vote to accept it, but vote to pass it as legislation, because I don't want to kick the can down the road. And I think that IBC has been like, during COVID was the one bright spot in town. There was like a ghost town. There was nothing going on. People were having a great time at IBC. The only complaint that I ever have heard of IBC is the noise. And I mean, I got one complaint from somebody that lived on Cressy recently it was the Scottish rock band. He said he could hear every word the guy was singing inside of his home. And people shouldn't really have to put up with that. So I think that's the pushback that you get from the community is pretty much strictly that. I mean, and even the people that complain about it kind of like the place. You know, it's a great place to stop by for something to drink and something to eat. So you have that going for you. But my other question is the tents. They can still get a permit for a tent, Mr. Klein?
Yes, absolutely. They can get a tent for a period, a new permit for a period of 180 days.
Even though the tents have been up for the last couple of years?
Yes, and my recommendation would be that a new permit, if the establishments would like to keep the tents up after March the 31st, I would recommend that they be required to get a new permit, building permit.
Okay.
That would allow the fire marshal and so forth to go in, make another inspection of all the things that they do.
Right, to make sure it's safe.
And make sure it's safe for everybody, and then issue that permit for 180 days. It's only permitted for 180 days in a 12-month period.
Although in the last 12-month period, it's been up continuously.
Yes, and I believe that's just because of the extension of COVID. So if say for example, they did not want to keep it up for the month of April and May because they wanted to keep it up in October and November. They would then just disassemble the tent and get the permit 2 months later, and then start the 180-day new period at that point in time.
Okay. And can they have live music in that tent?
Absolutely. Yep. That's
Mr.
really
Small,
up to
you're-
Kevin.
you're leaning
That's
in.
that's up to Kevin with his start.
I
But they're
think given the
permitted
past,
to.
given the past issues we've had with the music and the tents, we would be reluctant to allow that.
I'm feeling better about voting for an extension for outdoor dining.
Yes,
The sole problem is the noise, and it just carries, and some of it carries more in certain seasons, you know, with leaves or not on the trees, it carries more. I get that. I was there one night, and there was music inside the closed building, which was absolutely deafening. You couldn't speak to somebody else, but outside, it was not bothering anybody. So, you know, I mean, if you want to listen to the music, you can go inside. It's the outside music that carries that for me is a
Right.
problem because it's bothering the community.
And I did want to bring everyone's attention to, that's also addressed in the resolution where it specifically states that all provisions relating to entertainment, live bands, musician, outdoors events, those go back to normal. So those would be regulated as they were pre-COVID.
One last item, I would just point this out, is we have St. Patrick's Day coming up.
Yes, we do.
Everybody knows that on St. Patrick's Day, you're going to hear music all over town. They expect it. They know it's coming. It's the noise or the music that you don't expect coming that becomes more of the problem.
Or the every weekend music that
Right.
you are afraid you're going to have coming, St. Patrick's Day, people are probably like, okay, it's
They know
one
if they don't
day,
want to be
it's-
around, they're going to leave town for a day or two, and then they'll be back. But that's the essentially what we're looking at. We're not looking to stop it completely, but we also want to make it so that it might be just a once in a year kind of thing, like anniversary or whatever.
Yes, there definitely will be bands in the Loonies tents.
I know, and I can sometimes hear them, but it's kind of muffled, and I don't find it all that, offensive. But if I could hear every word that the singer was singing when I was
Right.
inside of my home, I think I would be
Right.
not happy about that. So,
Yeah, special events, yeah, that's understandable. Is there a limit on the number of special events per time?
It's a total of 30 days per year. So
30
if
days.
somebody goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're using 3 days.
Okay. With a band or what you're saying, yeah.
Right, any
Right.
kind of special event.
Event. Okay.
any other comments from the commissioners before we take public comment? No? All right. In that case, anyone that wishes to comment on Resolution 1245-25 is welcome to come forward.
Bring it down to my height. Tim Stilper, 435 Choice Street, town resident for 25 years, and also the general manager for Independent Brewing Company. First and foremost, thank you to the commissioners and the town of Bel Air for all the efforts that were made with the tents in relation to Independent Brewing Company and the other businesses in town. This tent and these provisions allowed us to continue operations in COVID, allowed us to bring all of our employees back to work quickly, certainly allowed me to keep my job. But not only that, it allowed our town residents to enjoy a sense of normalcy and get back to being able to gather in a safe manner. So these tents were instrumental in keeping us in business, as well as providing a space for not only our town residents, but also nonprofits and organizations that have had fundraisers and things of that nature through the years. So these tents have been a huge benefit. As the tents stand, we're ready for them to go away. So we're obviously not in opposition of the tents disappearing. What this buffer period does is it allows us to, as Jake said, a soft landing for our customers to kind of become accustomed to it, but also for the brewery to then plan on what do we look like for the next 5 and 10 years. We have some adjacent properties in town that we would like to see demolished. Perhaps they could assist us in parking. And the parking on our side of town not only benefits us, but it benefits the people that use the trails that are now expanding and things of that nature. So we're certainly not going to come back to the commission and ask, hey, can we get another extension? Because we know that that's not going to happen, and we're prepared for that. And we also want to be a good neighbor. So as these tents go away, and we pull back our entertainment back closer to the brewery, this will also allow us maybe to reevaluate our property. Can we swap green space for parking? What can we do to, again, benefit the community, benefit our business, and make our property as best it can be? And I certainly hope you see Independent as something that has propped up that end of town over the years. I know for the 9 years that I've been there, I see nothing but good things that have been done there. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak about this and the opportunity to kind of give us a little grace period and kind of get our customers accustomed to what's going to happen, try to plan for the future, and continue to grow that side of town. So thank you, and thank you for all that you've done. We appreciate it. So
Thank you for your comments this evening. Anyone else that wishes to speak to Resolution 1245-25?
Good evening, everyone. Donna Dickey, 1206 Maywood Court, Bel Air, Maryland. Just to kind of bounce off of what Tim said, it's wonderful. What he said is great. And going back to when you guys discussed it last week at the work session, I really do think that a little pressure needs to be put on the business owner across the street. That's kind of delaying a lot of things that need to get rolling. And my biggest concern is that state grant that they were awarded, I think it was 2 years, am I correct, Kevin? But we've already wasted at least a year. So I'm really worried that if we don't get some pressure on them, and maybe the Bel Air Downtown Alliance who partnered with them to get that grant, that's money that's going to be wasted and nothing's going to get done with that property. And when we're talking the tents catching on fire and everything else, that there's nothing more flammable than those two buildings. And they're easily accessible to the homeless and cigarettes, and so that's a big concern. Like, I love the soft landing. I think it's a perfect solution, but I would also ask that some pressure is put on the business owners to make that progress happen. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else that wishes to comment on this resolution? All right, in that case, any further from the board? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All right, Commissioner Rutledge?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Chance? And the chair votes aye as well. All right. The next thing on our agenda is the road improvement right-of-way deed. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the road improvement right-of-way deed is detailed and illustrated in Exhibit A between the Standard on Bond, JV, the property owners, and the town of Bel Air, Maryland, be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. And this is Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Standard on Bond joint venture are the owners of a tract of land located at the intersection of Bond Street and Lester Way within the corporate limits of the town of Bel Air. As a condition of development, the owners are conveying to the town .055 acres of right-of-way along Lester Way. The road improvement right-of-way deed is signed by the property owners and the chair of the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, following its approval by the board. The road improvement right-of-way deed is necessary to facilitate the upgrading and widening of Lester Way, a public street owned and maintained by the town. The staff recommends the road improvement right-of-way deed between the Standard on Bond joint venture and the town of Bel Air, Maryland, be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Any comments from the board? Questions?
No, I think we hit them all at the working session,
I think you're right. All right, in that
at least
case,
mine.
is there anyone here that wishes to make a public comment on the road improvement right-of-way deed? I didn't think so. All right, let's take the vote. Commissioner Rutledge?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. All right. And the last thing under new business is the Public Works and Developer Agreement for the Standard on Bond. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Public Works and Developer Agreement for the Standard on Bond by and between the Standard on Bond, JV, and the town of Bel Air, Maryland, be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. And Mr. Klein again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Standard on Bond joint venture is the owner and developer of a property located at the intersection of Lester Way and Bond Street within the corporate limits of the town of Bel Air. They plan to construct a mixed-use 5-story building on the site. To proceed, a public works agreement must be executed between the owner, developer, and the town, ensuring the construction and completion of improvements to Lester Way and the installation of storm drains, curbs, gutters, and sanitary infrastructure. The public works agreement is a formal contract with the town, signed by the owner and developer, the director of public works, and the town administrator, following approval by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners. The public works agreement obligates the owner-developer to guarantee the proper construction of the roadway improvements to Lester Way, including storm drain systems, curbs and gutters, and sanitary sewer infrastructure. To ensure this compliance, all construction will be inspected by a private agency on behalf of the town, verifying adherence to the approved engineering plans and specifications. Upon final acceptance, the town of Bel Air will assume ownership and maintenance responsibility for the new infrastructure within its right-of-way. Staff recommends that the Public Works and Developer Agreement between the Standard on Bond joint venture and the town of Bel Air be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Klein? Discussion amongst the board? All right. Is there anyone here that wishes to make a public comment on this Public Works and Developer Agreement? All right. In that case, I will call for the vote. Commissioner Rutledge?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. All right, public announcements. All Town of Bel Air offices will be closed on Monday, February 17th in observance of President's Day. Please visit our website or social media pages for more information on how trash pickup will be affected. The Family Fun at the Armory series continues Saturday, February the 8th with Jazz for People Who Are Shorter Than Me, featuring Seth Kybel and his fellow musicians. Doors open at 10:45 a.m. and the show begins at 11 a.m. Admission is free, but space is limited, so visit belaiararmory.org to reserve a spot. The third and final show, Mayhem Magical Circus on February 15th, has been sold out. The Historical Society of Harford County here in Bel Air will host The Ma and Pa Comes to Harford with guest speaker Walt Holloway on Saturday, February the 8th. Mr. Holloway will show photographs and tell stories about the heyday of the Ma and Pa Railroad. Trains on the route between Baltimore and York, PA stopped right in Bel Air. Tickets are $15 per person and can be purchased at harfordhistory.org, and the event begins at 2 p.m. The Liriodendron Mansion in Bel Air will host It's a Lovely Day Today, featuring jazz and pop vocalist Janet Paulson singing the hits of Doris Day, Dinah Shore, and Ella Fitzgerald on Saturday, February the 15th. Tickets are $20 per person and can be reserved online at liriodendron.com. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the show starts at 7 p.m. The Appearance and Beautification Committee will meet at 7 p.m. on Monday, February the 10th in Town Hall. The Tree Committee will meet at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February the 12th in the Bel Air Planning Department at 705 East Churchville Road. And the Board of Town Commissioners will hold a work session on Tuesday, February the 11th at 5:15 in Town Hall. The next town meeting will be Tuesday, February the 18th at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. The meetings of all Town of Bel Air public bodies are open to the public. Agendas are available on the town website, belairmd.org, and meetings of the town commissioners can be viewed live on the Town of Bel Air, Maryland YouTube channel. Did I miss anything? No? All right. And now we are at public comments. The public is welcome to comment on anything, whether it was on the agenda this evening or not. And I see we have at least one person here.
Good evening, Peg Lucas, 516 Robinson Street, Bel Air, Maryland. Hello again. I do have a couple things in mind, and they pertain particularly to the two ordinances. Could you talk a little louder? Yes, pertaining particularly to the two ordinances that were discussed tonight. One mentioned by Mr. Rutledge was that he stripped down the ordinances originally promoted. Well, stripping it down to the point of removing the exceptions for the two approved parcels is frightening, downright frightening. I think that needs to be looked at a great deal, and you need to pay attention to ECDC and the Planning Commission. They have each reached out to you with their opinions, with their recommendations, and I think that they deserve recognition and attention. The other thing, Mr. Chismar, I like the town the way it is now. I like the way it was 20 years ago. I like the way it was 40 years ago. But we've got to look to tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And it cannot stay the same way as it is today, just as it could not 20 years ago and 40 years ago. There are
But I never said
things
that.
that are working.
I didn't say it was going to stay, I didn't say I wanted to
I'm
keep it the
not
same.
asking for
Okay.
a comment, sir. You did say, you said you like the town the way it looks now. We can check the minutes. But, again, this is good, but let's look forward. Let's look to plans that can improve what is going to be needed in the future. And basically, please pay attention to those commissions that you have in place in the town that have looked at all of this for a great deal of time, and they are aware of maybe a little more than your desires for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas. Is there anyone else here this evening that wishes to make a public comment? All right, in that case, it's our turn. Commissioners' comments.
Yes, I'd like to address Ms. Lucas's comment. I said I like the way the town is now, and I said I'm also for growth. I said I don't want to transform it into something that it isn't today. And building, growing in the context of the way the town is today is what I was saying. Not saying we want it to stay the same, no more development. That's not what I am for. I am for development. I'm just for it in a way that keeps the character of the town. That's all.
I would say that I I've always appreciated the wisdom of these ordinances as they've come through, but we, as Commissioner Rutledge said, have done a lot of work on them. We've offered a lot of amendments. We've, I think, improved them. And it seems to me now that the critical issue is the discussion of the special carve-out, and that there is a great deal more thought to be had on that issue. I understand Mayor Edding has suggested that we'll put that on our next work session. I think that's an excellent idea. I would say to all those folks who came out to comment tonight, I appreciate every viewpoint that we heard, and I really appreciate the time and effort of Planning Commission and ECDC. It doesn't mean that we'll always, in our final posture, agree with everything that those two advisory boards give us, but it does mean that we absolutely, I agree, have an obligation to consider them and consider them thoroughly and consider them thoughtfully. And that's what I intend to do. I know we have a month until our public hearing. I intend to go over this legislation as thoroughly as we have been going over it for now the past month and a half, since mid-December. And I know that there will be more discussion on it. And so I, again, commend the staff for all of their hard work on this. Mr. Small, I think this has been the lion's share of your life for the last month and a half, and I really commend you on all of the drafts that you've put together and the way that you have guided this board through getting us to a place where we're actually looking at legislation, I think, on the holistic, when we don't consider, you know, the particulars of today, when we consider the universalities of tomorrow, when we consider the general place that these two ordinances would lead the town of Bel Air, I see the encouragement of mixed-use development. And I see the encouragement of development that is beneficial to the town of Bel Air. And as Commissioner Chismar said, is in line certainly with what we've seen, but will also provide for new and exciting opportunities. We've seen projects like the Standard on Bond come through. That's unusual, that type of project. And I think that type of project, that type of mixed-use project, will really benefit the town as we move forward. And I think the goal of these two ordinances is to encourage more mixed-use development. And of course, the devil's always in the details, and that's why we have another month to go over it and really scrub through these details to make sure that we get it right before we take a final vote. So I appreciate all the public comment tonight. I'm sure we'll get more, and I look forward to it, and I appreciate the thoughts of my colleagues as we work towards making this legislation the best that it can be.
Well said.
I have just some real issues with presenting legislation that then takes away a project that has been approved by the Planning Commission and is supported by ECDC. I think we have to be very, very careful about what we do that is done with truly the most ethical way of going forward. That's all.
Yeah, Madam Chair, my reporting comments for the evening, I wanted to once again thank Chief Moore and the Bel Air Police Department for bringing the presentations with Marine Scott Hogue and Marine Nicholas Rhodes. The Marine Corps has always been a big part of my family, and I can't express my gratitude for the bravery and the courage of those two men as public servants of our great nation and our great town of Bel Air. And it's a fabulous testament to the attraction of the really the feeling of sincerity that you and the leadership of the Bel Air Police Department brings to continue to retain and continue to attract and put forth really the highest standards, because in my experience, Marines, with the accomplishments that they've had, the deployments they've had, they're not going to waste their time with an organization that doesn't personally add to the fulfillment of their dream to be the very best they can be for the least of these. And I just think it was a fantastic presentation. I just wanted to express my gratitude to them and to Chief Moore and to everyone in the department of the police department. I read the minutes. No, I didn't attend, the listening meeting on the budget, and really that's where I think we really need to be putting some serious pen to paper on what can we do to further support our police department. I'm all for making sure that when that call comes in, that we're adequately staffed, that we don't stress out people beyond their limits. And I know as we get ready to approach the budget system time, everybody wants more, no pun intended, more. Everybody wants more, but I am completely committed to just like to see Mr. Hopkins, I'd like to see as you work through your budget recommendations, speaking for myself, that's something we really need to, and I know we've got problems because, what's the county doing? Once again, it's always, some little glitch with, the coordination in the county on whatever it is. But I think overall we have an excellent relationship. We have a good working relationship between the departments in this county, but we need to backfill where we have to, even if, we can't wait for other government entities outside of this board to do what needs to be done. And so I look forward to hearing more about that. I certainly apologize for not being able to, make that listening meeting myself, and thank Commissioner Chismar and Mayor Edding for being able to take the time to be there. But I did read through those minutes, and it really struck me. And tonight's presentation even brings it more home base for us. And then I wanted to also just ask if we could make sure that on the next work session, that on our agenda, if just changing gears here for a moment, to discuss the status of our legislation for the Historic Preservation Commission appeal. It's my understanding there may be some little procedural glitch in the process, but whatever Mayor Edding, you and Commissioner Taylor can do, it just so the next work session we could just get a little update on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's so, being the liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, that's really near and dear to their heart. So
And assure them we are working on it.
I will, but if you don't mind, just we could spend a little time on that.
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be a lot of time.
And I will touch base with Delegate McComas to see how that's going. But my understanding is that there was legislation that we did ask to be submitted to accomplish our objective, and I'll ask her for an update how that's going.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, really appreciate all your effort and hard work on that. And I just thought while the session's kind of percolating
It is.
along, then we can do that. But and I'll just conclude with, again, just publicly thanking all the public comments that have come forward this evening, and you know, certainly value that very much. You know, we get comments from a lot of different constituents in town. You know, on the street. You know, in the restaurant. You know, so. But it is important for people to come out and voice how they feel about things right here, you know, on the record. So for those who sacrifice and taken the time out of their busy schedules to do that, I value that very much. I consider the position here as a commissioner to be a deliberative one, and you know, pledge to take all the various views into serious consideration in the decisions that we make. I know my fellow colleagues feel the same way. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I just had two things to say. One is I don't think we have in a public session mentioned what an impressive invitation it is for our police department to have participated in the inaugural events and to help provide security. That is really another, you know,
Feather in our cap.
another feather in your cap. It is very impressive to be asked to participate in that. So congratulations, and thank all the officers for I know it was cold, very cold.
And thanks for allowing us and giving us the support to go down there. That
Absolutely.
was really appreciated amongst the troops that went.
Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to say was, since I missed the last work session, I was able to watch it in its entirety on our YouTube channel. And I can't say how happy I am that I know it was a lot of work, particularly for you, Mr. Krantz, to get that up and running. But it is terrific for those that, like myself, I really wanted to, it's not the same to have somebody summarize it for you. To actually watch it yourself is great. And I did notice that it had like 90 views. Who's watching it, I don't know, but we never have 90 people at a meeting. But somebody out there is watching. And it also gives our residents an opportunity that if they hear something through the grapevine and they wanted to know what happened, they can go look at it for themselves. So, you know, great move forward for the town. I'm very happy that we did that. And that would be it. Oh, we have one more thing on our agenda. And that is we need to recognize the passing of former Commissioner Philip L. Einhorn. And we do have a proclamation in recognition and remembrance of Commissioner Einhorn. Whereas the town of Bel Air mourns the passing of former Commissioner Philip L. Einhorn, who dedicated his time and service to the betterment of our community, and whereas Philip L. Einhorn was elected to the town of Bel Air's Board of Town Commissioners and faithfully served from November 16, 2015 to November 18, 2019, demonstrating a steadfast commitment to public service, leadership, and the welfare of the town and its residents. And whereas during his tenure, Commissioner Einhorn worked diligently to enhance the quality of life in Bel Air, advocating for responsible governance, economic development, and the preservation of the town's rich heritage. And whereas the town of Bel Air is forever grateful for his service, leadership, and commitment, and he will be deeply missed by all who had the privilege to know and work with him. Now, therefore, the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners does hereby recognize and honor the life and legacy of Philip L. Einhorn, extending our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones, and expressing our sincere gratitude for his years of service and dedication to our beloved town. And the one thing that I believe I remember about Commissioner Einhorn was he was the moving force behind the town selling their surplus equipment on gov.com. Is that what it's called, gov.com? Which was like brilliant. So he has left that for us as his part of his legacy, that we continue to do that. And it was such a terrific idea. We have to thank you for that one.
Yeah, he picked that up at MML Summer Conference, and he brought it home, and ever since we've been utilizing it to our favor, for sure.
I know you saw those trucks, and we get
Yep.
a pretty good amount of money back on those to roll into the next truck. So
Yep, absolutely.
we owe him a debt.
I will say I never got a chance to meet Commissioner Einhorn, but I recall reading an op-ed that he wrote to the Aegis back in 2019 when he was seeking re-election, Now, I was not yet eligible to vote in that election, but I was still reading the Aegis to see what the candidates had to say. And I remember Commissioner Einhorn, he was seeking a second term, and he was describing an issue, I believe it had to do with a cell tower. He was describing an issue in which he came into the meeting and the piece of legislation with one preconception, one conviction about how he ought to vote. And then he listened to the community input meeting, and just about every person that cell tower would have affected disagreed with him. And accordingly, he changed his vote. And he wrote this op-ed about why he was seeking re-election, because he felt it was important to listen to the people and meet the people where they are. And I've kept that with me even now. You know, this is an op-ed that was written now 6 years ago, but certainly Commissioner Einhorn's spirit of public service will be missed. And as a public servant myself, I try to do my best in keeping with that spirit.
Anything else? All right, in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.